Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com with you for another, and maybe, well, it's not the final, but it's a regular season finale episode of the Pittsburgh Steelers Post-Game Podcast here from Behind the Steel Curtain's audio platform. Make sure wherever you get your podcasts, you check us out. You can just search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain, follow, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. And as always, we are a part of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, so make sure you check out that website. A lot of good stuff there. As always, I'm joined by Bryan Anthony Davis, our podcast producer. What's going on, Bryan?
Hey, what's up, fellas? Glad to be here. Glad the regular season is over, and I'm ready to start the playoffs.
I think you're not alone in that regard. Dave Schofield, the other co-editor, what's going on? How are you tonight?
I don't know. I'm kind of like how Bryan said. I'm glad the regular season's over, only because the Steelers are rolling into the postseason. You know, just think about how it's been the last 2 years for Steeler fans come this time. It's, oh, man, now the offseason started. They didn't make it. No, let's get to the postseason. Let's roll.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Let's start off the show before we get into grades and everything like that. And we have a lot of people filing in both from Facebook and YouTube. I wanted to get your all's just knee-jerk reactions to this game. I know the tendency is to want to go ahead and say, let's talk about next week. Let's talk about the playoffs, because as of right now, it is official. The Steelers are locked in with the Cleveland Browns again in the AFC wildcard playoffs because the Buffalo Bills beat the Miami Dolphins. So that's the matchup for the Steelers next week. I don't want to get – what's up, Dave?
You forgot a word.
What's that?
Down. They beat down the Miami Dolphins.
You're right. And some of that was with their reserves as well. I know the tendencies want to get – let's just start talking about that. But we're going to talk about this game, and we're going to lead up to the playoffs and have all of our regular content there. It doesn't mean we won't mention the playoffs, but the primary focus is going to be this 24-22 loss to the Cleveland Browns in Week 17. Bryan, knee-jerk reactions from that game, what are they?
They did not get blown out. They showed heart. I still don't really love the offensive play calling, but I thought it got a little more imaginative with Josh Dobbs in there, you know, to throw a little monkey wrench in the whole thing. But that was for this game only, probably, even though it was addressed on Mike Tomlin's press conference. Just knee-jerk reaction. They didn't get beat down 31-9 by the Browns, and at one point it looked like that could happen, and that's embarrassing going into the playoffs. In the back of my mind, because, you know, I hate Baker Mayfield. I abhor this guy more than you do, Jeff. And my thought is, pal, wait till next week.
Baker Mayfield sucks. Just had to throw that in there. Dave, what's your knee-jerk reactions to?
The knee-jerk reaction is this. And I know you said don't look forward, but this is a knee-jerk reaction. The Browns were playing to get to the playoffs. The Steelers were playing to win there.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
End of story.
Yeah. There's an article I'm going to write once the show's over, or once I eat dinner. I don't know, whichever comes first. And it's going to be titled "Mission Accomplished." The Steelers get out of Week 17 without injury. Mike Tomlin had his post-game press conference and said that they escaped any major injuries. Meanwhile, on the other side, you know, the Browns saw the receiver. Can't remember his name. He got hurt, didn't return. Olivier Vernon hurt his ankle and didn't return. Those are injuries that could linger in the next week, and that's going to obviously leave them down a few players. But the Steelers, if anything, could be getting players back as they think about the possibility of Robert Spillane coming back for the postseason. It's something Mike Tomlin alluded to last week leading up to this game. It didn't happen. I think if you're going to see it, it's now or never for Spillane. We'll see. Other than that, I said it on my Let's Ride podcast and was kind of ridiculed. I said, let's leave the door open that Mason Rudolph might have actually gotten better, because everyone wrote him off. Everyone said he's awful. Everyone said Mason Rudolph stinks. He's a bum. We all watched in 2019, but maybe because I remember Tony Defeo wrote this article for the website. This was way back before Week 1, saying that there's no preseason. Well, we won't know how good Mason Rudolph has gotten, if he's improved at all. And hopefully we don't. That's what he said. Hopefully we don't find out, meaning that obviously the Steelers go into the playoffs. Ben Roethlisberger's healthy. Well, here he is in Week 17. Guys, I think that he has improved tremendously from last season. I saw more confidence. I saw better pocket presence. I saw a guy that was more accurate with downfield throws. It was rough going at first. I think that's expected, but I thought Mason Rudolph was vastly improved. I'm not saying that he's like the next great quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he was improved, period. Let's get to this super chat here before we get into talking about Rudolph's numbers. Darren Dalton gives us $20. A new segment for you guys for the last game of the regular season. The three of you take turns simulating being the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Which player or players are you calling into your office, and what do you have to say to them? That's not a bad idea, Darren. When the season is over, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll have a show, like we'll do a Steelers preview where we'll do that. We'll pretend to be Kevin Colbert, and we'll bring these players in and say, here's what's going to happen. But thank you, Darren, for the $20 tip. We really appreciate it. Hope you have a great new year. So you guys ready? Let's break this down by the numbers. Start with Mason Rudolph, or I should say the quarterbacks, because Joshua Dobbs did have some statistics. Mason Rudolph, 22 for 39, 315 yards, 8.1 average, 2 touchdowns, had that one ugly interception. Boy, was that a bad decision on his part. He was only sacked one time for 8 yards with an 89.2 rating. Joshua Dobbs, who came in occasionally, 4 for 5, 2 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a 79.2 rating. Guys, let's grade the quarterbacks. If you want to be more specific to Rudolph or Dobbs, that's up to you. Bryan, we'll start with you.
So let's go ahead and grade them as a unit. So the quarterbacking unit, I really think, I'm going to go ahead and give them a B-. I thought in the first half they could have moved the ball a whole lot better. Settling for field goals in a couple places, hurt. I really think that they could have done a little bit more, but I thought they did a lot with the fact that you're going against exactly what Dave said, a team that was trying to make the playoffs. They were hungry. Mason did not get rattled. He got cracked on that one play where he threw the interception, which, I kind of thought could have been called back. Even the announcers thought it could have been called back. But, I really didn't think it was a bad showing by the quarterbacks for what you were looking at in this position. I can look back at a few years when the Steelers were going to the playoffs, and it was Landry Jones' job, and they barely won behind Landry Jones, and they had they didn't rest as many guys. They rested Ben. They rested a couple, but it just seemed like Mason Rudolph came and showed up in this game.
Dave, what do you think?
Okay, a couple things from what Bryan says. First of all, those 2 Landry Jones games, I know I was there for at least one, maybe both of them. Those were against Cleveland Brown teams that came into Heinz Field with a combined record those 2 years of 1-29. Those were the 2 years they went 1-15 and 0-16. And the Steelers just get past them at home with that. This was a good Cleveland Browns team that they went into Cleveland, didn't even bring left 4 captains at home, and they go in there and do what they did. I'm grading the quarterbacks. I'm going B+. Yes, the interception was ugly, but what was happening at that time, and it's not that it could have been called back, it should have been called back, but that penalty wasn't what caused it to be an interception. That was a 3rd and long play. The Steelers were trailing. He was attempting to make a play rather than just throw it away. And of course, when it gets intercepted, you're like, oh man, just wish he would have thrown it away. If something where it gets through the defender and they catch the ball, you're like, oh, what an amazing play. So it was an ugly interception. It probably wasn't the best decision there. And early on, the Steelers, believe it or not, some of their best play calls they made early on with some play action, they just weren't quite there with the execution-wise. So the execution got better as the day went on. Yes, am I grading on a curve? Probably, because my expectations for Mason Rudolph are not the expectations that I have for one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. But I thought both quarterbacks, whenever they were in the game, doing what they need to do, did the best they could with the plays that were called.
I'm going to go with just a standard B for the quarterbacks. I thought they did enough to win the game, except you look at the first half lulls with drives just stalled in field goal range. That's frustrating. I will say that Mike Tomlin's press conference after the game today, whatever you want to call it, he left the door open for the possibility of dressing 3 quarterbacks in the playoffs, saying that Joshua Dobbs might be a part of this offense, maybe moving forward. I would personally be shocked if they take Ben Roethlisberger off the field to put in Joshua Dobbs. but he left the door open. And honestly, it's a different look. It's something that, maybe that the Browns, they saw it this week, but maybe there are new wrinkles with a second week of prep. We'll see if they do that. I'm not sure if that's just Tomlin being Tomlin and the wordsmith that he is. But real quick, Brian, would you be okay if Dobbs gets a helmet next week?
Absolutely. Phillip Rivers was okay with it when you brought in Jacoby Brissett last week. It's a situation that if it's a wrinkle that could change the face of a game, then you go ahead and do it. I remember way back in the day when Ben Roethlisberger was a younger player and they would do some wildcat crazy stuff with Antoine Randall L., but Ben was still on the field. So, there's some things that you can do with that. I think it's an extra wrinkle, and I think you need to pull out the wrinkles in the playoffs.
Possibly. Dave, you're the inactive guy. How in the world can they give him a helmet and still get away with it?
That's going to be tricky. They could go back to 5 defensive linemen like they normally did because they'd been dressing 6. That's one possibility. It's really going to, what's going to come down to a lot? It's going to be, do you get these players back from the COVID list? The 2 of them. With that, are you going to have back Robert Spillane? Are you going to have back Matt Filer? Matt Filer's an interesting one. You want to take Filer and put him back in there in place of Dotson right now? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's an intriguing question. So, but that's what I think it's going to come down to, more of what's going on with everybody else. Do they have any guys that are injured and things of that sort?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That might just be Tomlin just, kind of throwing that out there to make the Browns have to prepare for the possibility of facing Joshua Dobbs here in the playoffs. And those RPOs that he's running, if it takes time away from them preparing for other things, I'm not sure. But it's something that's definitely an option. We'll see what happens. Let's go down to the running backs. James Conner, 9 carries for 37 yards, a 4.1 average. Joshua Dobbs, 2 carries for 20. Anthony McFarland, 5 for 17. Benny Snell Jr., 3 for 10. Mason Rudolph, 1 for 1. They end up rushing for 85 total yards. That's a huge uptick for them. On 20 carries, averaging 4.3. That 4.3 that Steelers haven't seen that average in a while. Guys grading the running backs. Start with you, Brian. Go ahead.
I'm still going to, I'm not going to grade them well, but I'll give them a C. So, average, that's probably the best that they've seen in weeks from us. We were talking on the preview the other day about the over and under, and I believe, I can't remember what you said. I actually said over. I thought they would get close to maybe 80, 90 yards, and they did. So that's pretty pleasing there for what has been such a subpar unit. So let's go ahead and give them a C because it's their best game in a while.
I said rush yards 70 on that over-under segment. I had 70 yards, so it was over. So if you said over, you got it.
Wow. I think I might have said under. I can't ever remember these.
I don't know. It's a lot. All right, Dave, what about you? What grade are you giving the running game?
I'm really torn between a B- and a C+. I thought it's funny because there were the running backs run better on certain types of plays. And for those of you that didn't realize, once again, I did not get the game. I was at Jeff's house again, and we're watching this game, and Jeff gets so frustrated. Like the one time there was a play where James Conner had one guy out there, and he's stopping, and he's juking, and he's trying to make that guy miss for a big play, which would have been nice. But he also could have made sure he didn't run square at him, miss him just to the left, just to the right, and fallen forward for 2 or 3 yards. And by trying to make the guy miss, he ended up getting no more yards. So there's times where you're like, you could eke out some of these extra yards if you just see it. But then again, Jeff's like, run north and south. But we have an east-west view of the field while they have a north-south view of the field. So sometimes it's those type of things. I felt that they played hard. They ran hard. But there were some times that they could have possibly made a better read on where to run on certain plays a good bit.
I'm actually going to give them a B. And the reason why is that the Steelers, even though they didn't have Marquise Pouncey, that's a big loss there on the offensive line. And they were going against the Browns starters. This is not a preseason game we're talking about. Yeah, the Steelers kind of approached it as a preseason game, but the Browns, they had their guys, they weren't missing anyone that I'm aware of on the defensive front. And so because of that, I thought that this was probably the best running game we've seen in a long time. Not saying it was great. And in the second half, they had to throw the ball to get back into it, especially when they were trailing. What was it, 24-9 at one point, I think is what the score was at one point, and then they had to come back. So I thought the running game was okay. If they would have kept it close and not given up that second touchdown that made it 24-9, they would have been able to run the ball more. And so instead, the game can kind of dictate where that goes. Again, the over 4 yards average for the Steelers, I'll take it. I'll take that all the time. So there you go. I'll give them a B. Let's go down to the receivers. Chase Claypool led the Steelers 5 catches for 101 yards. I can't remember the last time a Steelers receiver went over 100. It might have been a while. Any you guys remember? Did Deontay go over this season?
Several times he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Deontay did.
All right. So Chase Claypool goes over the century mark, I think, for the first time in his career. Deontay Johnson has 3 catches.
I think he had it another time.
All right, you guys are killing me. 5 for 101 for Chase Claypool, 3 for 96 for Deontay Johnson. Juju Smith-Schuster, 6 for 65 and a touchdown. Claypool had a touchdown, by the way. Vance McDonald puts his hand in the hat, 5 for 33. James Conner, 5 for 25. And then a bunch of other guys were targeted. James Washington had the drop. That just didn't start well for him. But boy, I'll tell you what, Chase Claypool especially, and Deontay Johnson, great game, guys. Let's grade out the receivers. Bryan, go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and give them an A-. I really thought the receivers were pretty good. You did mention that big drop by James Washington, but solid game by them. They were balling out that one play, that one catch that wasn't by Chase Claypool, which he did not get that second foot down. But that stretching grab out of bounds was athletic and beautiful. And that's the kind of things I look at when I say ball out. I really think that those guys were playing with a lot of heart. I thought Juju was playing with heart. Thought they all looked really good. And I was thinking in the middle of that game, Deontay Johnson did not do anything amazing. Deontay Johnson did everything very good and solid in this game. I feel like he has gotten the message. And that is a huge turnaround because everything that's coming his way, he's starting to gobble up if it's a catchable ball. So I really like what I'm seeing from the wide receivers. So I got to go ahead and give him in the A range, but I'm still going to give him an A-.
All right, Dave, what about you?
I'm going to give them a solid A. I think other than a couple of those plays that they just didn't come up with early on, it would have been an A+. I think they were doing what they needed to do. I mean, there was a couple times, and Jeff pointed this out to me, that you saw Rudolph saying the same kind of thing to Deontay Johnson that we've seen Ben saying to him in the past, which was where they weren't reading the same things. So it wasn't perfect, but I thought it was very adequate just to clean up a couple things. Deontay Johnson had back-to-back 100-yard games in weeks 10 and 11 against Cincinnati and Jacksonville. And don't forget, Chase Claypool went over 100 yards in that Philly game when he had all those touchdowns.
That's right. Very good. Good. Thanks for the correction. Making me look like an idiot. I'm going to
You're welcome.
It's what you do best. All right. I'm going to go with an A for the receivers. Yeah, there were a couple drops, but again, outside of the Washington drop, I felt like the receivers were bringing in the passes that were thrown their direction. It was great to see Deontay Johnson's catch. I thought that was a tremendous catch that set up the Steelers inside the red zone, which turned into, I think, the Juju Smith-Schuster touchdown. And Chase Claypool is proven that if you give him opportunities, if you give him catchable balls, he's either going to draw a defensive pass interference or he's going to go up and get it himself. Rarely does he drop those passes. I was very impressed with the Steelers receiving core, and that's why I'm going to give him an A. So that's where we'll go with that. Let's go down the line here. And let's go to the offensive line. All right, offensive line grade. Remember, the Steelers did throw for 315 to Mason Rudolph. He was only sacked one time, but then again, you had 4.3 yards per carry on the ground. Guys, grading the offensive line all around. Bryan, what do you give them?
I'm actually going to give him an A-. And I'm sure you guys might go higher than that. It's I just feel like they played good ball. They really, I mean, I wasn't quite impressed with with everything Al was doing. I think that he's lost a little bit of something, but I really like the fact that you're missing your captain out there. You're missing a guy like Marquise Pouncey that is so important to that squad. It's kind of a line that with Hassenauer out there sometimes, and then Dotson out there, and Dotson is getting much better. I'm just kind of impressed that there were barely any penalties. In fact, I don't believe, was there a hold, Dave? There may have been one. I know there was a false start on Dotson.
Well, it's funny. They called the false start on Dotson, but it was really the entire offensive line except J.C. Hassenauer. It wasn't. Jeff said, was it like a B.J. Finney scenario?
B.J. Finney move where they were all moving except for the center.
No, I'm like, it wasn't that one where everyone moved and everyone kept moving and Finney's still sitting there. This was one where everyone moved a half count before the ball was snapped. I don't know that there was a holding. I can't remember a holding penalty.
I don't think so either, but
there was a hold on.
Yeah, actually, there was
on Villanueva. I think there was a play that was negated by a hold.
Yeah, one of those.
I know an illegal man downfield that was.
That's what I was thinking with Hassenauer too. So with that being said, I just thought the running game was better. The running game was better. So I've been all over this offensive line all year long. I want to give him a better grade, and I thought A- works.
All right, Dave, what's your grade for the offensive line?
And this is for both, right? Just making sure.
Yep.
All around.
Yep. Yes.
I'm going to go B. I was torn between a B and a B plus because I think they did a very nice job in pass protection. The one time that Rudolph took the sack, it was coming in his face and he just didn't feel it. But what happened was both Okorafor and the defender both fell down, but the defender was able to get up and smack Rudolph during the play. I mean, they both went to the ground because they were blocking. So it was doing a good job. That ball should have been thrown sooner, or he should have been able to feel that coming. But I feel like they did a nice job protecting Mason. That was going to be a really big issue in this game, and it really wasn't. I was still not impressed with Hassenauer at center. He did all right, but even you could just tell there's a little bit something different there. And run blocking, I even said it a couple of times, it drives me nuts when a runner is 3 yards downfield still trying to fight, and you look and you see offensive linemen standing around. I want to see them finish their blocks longer and say, I am just going to physically manhandle the person who I am blocking until I'm told I have to stop because I want to show how bad I can beat you. That's what I'd like to see, and we're not seeing that. That's the only reason I'm not giving them an A.
I'm going to give them B plus that you were toying with there. I'm going to give it a B plus. I thought they did a good job. Again, over 4 yards average per on the ground. I'll take it. And then they throw for over 300. They only give up one sack. I'll take that. I think the offensive line took a step forward. Yeah, Marquise Pouncey didn't play. You would think that would be, meaning it's an upgrade for the playoffs next week, but we'll see. Let's get to the super chat here. I'm trying to think how to say that. I don't know. Dave or Bryan, any guesses here?
What? The name?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, why can't you read that?
I can read that.
Stanley Febo.
There you go. We'll go with
22?
Bryan.
I was thinking it might be Stan Glide Febo.
Somebody like that.
He gives us $4.99. Thank you very much, Stan. And he says, if our wide receivers play this well next week, we will blow out the Brownies. The Steelers wide receivers did play well. They did play well. Going to give them. We gave Mays for a reason. So I think Dave might have given him a B, but still, absolutely.
Not minus.
Oh, I'm sorry. Real quick before we go take our break, and then we turn it over to the defensive side of the ball. Bryan, you mentioned this in your knee jerk. I wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of talk about play calling and the overall structure of the offense, because let's be honest, we had all talked about this on multiple platforms, how we were excited to see what the Steelers would do when Ben's not in there. You thinking this is all Randy Fichtner's offense. This is it. We're going to get to see it. Ben's not going to have any say in this week. Were you pleased? Were you disappointed? Bryan, let's go with you first.
Well, I wasn't as angry as I have been. I just still think there's a lot of – I think there's no imagination. And that's really how I feel now. They're now bringing out Dobbs, gives some more imagination to it. I get that. So you could that I could have some holes poke into this whole dissertation that I'm about to give. I just feel that Ben opened it up last week when it was his turn to open it up. I just feel like Randy is so conservative right now, and I think Mason was capable of so many more things that he wasn't given the opportunity to do. We were joking on the Slack channel about the obligatory second down run that always gets you in trouble. It's just like there is, like you guys did last week, like you guys were calling the plays on the couch. It's really easy to do. That's kind of what I was doing too. So I'm still have my Fire Randy sandwich board on during games, but no one's seeing it. I little bit better, but not enough.
Okay, Dave, what do you think about play calling?
Okay, play calling. Now I get to talk for a while. So you guys can go ahead. You can check out or whatever. Okay, well, first of all, I thought it was interesting when I pointed out Matt Canada was on the sidelines and he had a paper. I don't know if you saw that.
Is that normal, though,
I don't know if it is or not. I had not seen him on the sidelines with a paper. Maybe somebody else can tell me if that's the case. But when it comes to play calling, the Steelers had a golden opportunity here. I was actually speaking this morning at church to a Ravens fan that was just mentioning about stuff heading into the playoffs. And I'm like, I wanted to see the Steelers run. I like that they did the stuff that they did with Dobbs. I was afraid they wouldn't do that. I'm really glad they did that. I wanted to see more, not just more Dobbs, I wanted to see more, not the same old, same old. Jeffrey Benedict said it in the live chat earlier. So this was the same bad offense over those 4 games, except they were connecting on the long passes. I wanted to see a completely new philosophy. I wanted to say, come out with a whole new philosophy. You say you're trying to win the game, but if you really wanted to win the game, then your players would have been playing. But you want to win the game while you're playing it. Come out with a whole new philosophy. If it doesn't work, then go back at halftime. Come out with a whole new plan. Like I said, run the air raid. Line up with double tight power eye the whole time and just run it every play. Something completely different. Do you want to know why? Because then you're putting something different on tape. And if it works, well, if it doesn't work, who cares? If it does work, then whoever the Steelers face the next week, who now we know is the Cleveland Browns, people are going to have to be like, oh, we got to prepare for that, even if it being Ben Roethlisberger, even then if the Steelers wouldn't use it. It was the perfect opportunity to show how different you could be. They did it a little. I wish it would have been more. I want to talk about the 2-point conversion.
Okay.
Because when the Steelers scored that touchdown, I said to Jeff, darn it, that's the play I wanted to see for the 2-point conversion. Because it was a 2-yard touchdown pass to Juju. I'm like, they just had to run their 2-point conversion play to get the touchdown. I want everyone to know I'm joking. I'm seriously joking. Don't take this as being serious, but I just want to put it out there. Maybe the Steelers are like, do we really want to take on the Colts again? Or we could beat this Browns team right now. Why don't we just face them next week? Let's make a really dumb play call on this 2-point conversion. So then that way the Browns, we're going to set up this matchup for next week. Because it's almost what it feels like, because I felt that play call, I didn't like it. I'm not saying it was terrible. It was almost there. I felt there was so many other things they could have done there, and they didn't. So
I have to say, I'm going to echo whatever you all said, so I'm not just going to beat a dead horse. But I will say this, Dave Schofield, who is sitting next to me watching the game, he's in another chair, and he says, you know what this is setting up? So the Steelers get the ball for that last drive. He says, you know what this is setting up? And I said, they're going to score a touchdown and not get a 2-point conversion and lose by 2. And he said, yep. And that's exactly what happened. So just to say, he called that, by the way. Cody Marshall gave us $2 to ask me, did the Mason Rudolph jersey make an appearance today? I thought about it, and I said, you know what? My number one rule of thumb with jersey selection is always I wear the same color that the Steelers are wearing. So they were on the road. That's why I have my white. The Mason Rudolph is a black jersey. If he were at home, I would have worn the Rudolph jersey, but they were on the road. So there we go. All right. We're going to take a quick break on the audio side. If you are listening to part 1, just go over to part 2. We're going to talk about defense, grade those out, as well as talk about some injuries, maybe some players that are going to come back. So make sure you come back. If you're watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, don't go anywhere because we aren't going anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers Preview Podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Joining me, as always, Bryan Anthony Davis, our podcast producer, and Dave Schofield, the other co-editor. I don't know. It sounds like someone's getting killed at the Davis household. I'm not sure if that's what's going on.
Bryan.
Yeah, they might be. Yeah, it's been a long Christmas break. They go back to school tomorrow, and now everybody's fighting. So I'm going to put myself on mute and let you go.
All right, so let's talk about the defense now. Let's turn it over to the defensive side of the ball. I'm looking at let's talk about Baker Mayfield's numbers. He was 17 for 27, 196 yards, averaged 7.3 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Was sacked 4 times for 30 yards. That's without TJ Watt. That's without Cam Hayward. 4 sacks. I got to be honest, I didn't see that coming. We were concerned at one point, just wondering, is the streak going to continue? Yet here we are, Baker Mayfield, that's 17 for 27. Looking at the defense, we'll talk about pass rushing first. The Steelers finished with 4 quarterback hits. Obviously, we talked about the 4 sacks. Chris Wormley with 1, Stephon Tuitt with 1, Jaron Elliott with 1, and Alex Highsmith with 1. But I got to say, Alex Highsmith should have technically had 3. He equated to sacks for other people. The Tuitt and the Elliott sack were really all him. Let's grade the pass rush here, guys. What do you grade the Steelers pass rush? We'll start with Bryan.
I'm going to give him an A+, actually. I will, because really they did the things they needed to do. Like you, Jeff, like probably Dave, too, I was afraid that sack record, even though it doesn't matter, I just wanted to see this extended. There was a part where I was thinking they are not going to they're not going to sack this guy at all in this game. But then because the Browns had a really good offensive line going, they had their guys back. Everybody that was not there back in October was there this time around, and I really did not expect them to be able to get to him, especially with the fact that TJ Watt makes so many opportunities for a guy like Alex Highsmith. Alex Highsmith proved that you could possibly live life without Bud Dupree, and proved that he is the front runner for that starting job next year, because Alex Highsmith can get to the quarterback. You saw a guy like Wormley had a really nice game. He was back there on one of those sacks as well, where he could have gotten credit for it. So I really like what they did. I thought they went after the quarterback. There were times that Baker did take off and kill them with their legs, kill them with his legs, but it's just one of those things that I'm really proud of these guys.
What do you think, Dave? What's your grade for the pass rush?
I'm going to go. This is difficult because it looked early in the game, it looked like, the streak's going to be done. Mayfield sitting back there, and he's got all day to throw. And as the game went on, it seemed like it got better and better. So I'm going to give them a B+ with the most improved award, because I felt like as the game went on, they did a nice job. And really, I think that's what Bryan said basically sums everything up. Add TJ Watt in the mix with that. Highsmith had a good, solid, I would even say great game. It makes me feel good about going forward.
Yeah, when you think about the fact that the Steelers did take some of their players out in the second half, and they were spelling them more often, players like Stephon Tuitt, and then with Cassius Marsh not being able to play in this game due to being on the COVID list, they were very thin at outside linebacker. Jaron Elliott did play some outside, right, Dave? Wasn't Elliott on the outside at some?
Yeah, he was in there some, yeah.
And then you had Ola Adenye and Highsmith. These guys didn't get a lot of breaks, and they did a good job. I give it an A. I thought the pass rush was a good big part of the game. There were a couple times where Mayfield escaped. You figure that's a situation where TJ Watt typically nullifies some of those runs because he's just so good, period. He's a defensive player of the year candidate for a reason. So, okay, let's go down to the rushing. This is the rush defense. So the Cleveland Browns rushing, they rushed for 192 yards on 31 carries, 6.2 yards per carry. Nick Chubb, 14 carries for 108, none bigger than the 47-yard run he had in the first quarter for a touchdown. Baker Mayfield had 6 for 44. Kareem Hunt, 10 for 37, and Jarvis Landry, 1 for 3, with that run being a touchdown. Guys, when you're grading the Steelers' rush defense, 192 is a big number. What grade are you giving that? Brian, we'll start with you.
I got to be careful when I talk about Baker Mayfield because I always want to put an expletive before his name, and I did it a few times and I got yelled at by my wife in this game. So, there's children around. I'm like, yeah, I just hate this guy. And when I saw him take off and run, I was like, oh man, this guy is killing us. But, it's really hard to go ahead and give them a high grade for giving up almost 200 yards on the ground. I realize 40 some were by Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is, I think, and I said this on the preview, one of the best in the game at running back. They did shut down Kareem Hunt, what I thought was pretty well. So I love to go back and see where all those yards came from because it seemed like in the second half, the running game besides Baker Mayfield wasn't really working. I'm going to go ahead and give them a C+ because of some of the second half efforts. But I might be wrong on that. But it seemed like they clamped down a little bit, just like they did as far as the pass rush goes too. But still a C+.
Dave, what about you for the rush defense?
What did you say they had for the game?
192 total.
Okay, because they had 110 at halftime.
Then they started throwing the ball. They just got away from the run.
Well, remember, what was that? 47 of which was on the one touchdown early
47,
on.
Yeah.
I think once again, I think the defense in general is, the pass defense the rush defense early on was not good, but it did settle in as the game went on a little bit more. Still wasn't the best. I'm gonna give it a C- because anytime you look and say they ran for 192 yards, you're gonna be in trouble. The thing that was nice, it was really difficult when a team's running the ball that well that after the failed onside kick, you what do you want more than anything? They're going to run. You need to be able to stop them. Since it's already at the 50 now. I already saw on Twitter where someone showed, I couldn't even tell who that was from the Steelers that came flying through and just got drugged to the ground in a hold on the Browns' first down play after the onside kick. And they didn't call it. But they didn't call anything like that all game. So, but I really like it in that situation when a team's going to run and you have to make that stop. You need that stop. They didn't get that stop. They didn't even take it to fourth down to make them have to get that stop. Therefore I'm going. Did I say it's score yet?
A grade, you mean?
Yeah, did I say grade yet?
No,
if I did, okay, I'm going to say C-.
Yeah, I was thinking a C. Again, you're missing Cam Hayward. That's a big loss. You're missing TJ Watt. That's a huge loss. Fingers crossed here for me because I just don't want to be repetitive with what you all said. Fingers crossed here Spillane is able to come back next week. If Robert Spillane can come back and he can be a healthy version of what we saw earlier in the season before he got hurt, that would be a huge lift for this defense in general, but also for this rush defense. He's just really good in that regard. And I think most would say if you have Spillane, Williamson, Williams, and Marcus Allen, those four players able to play at different spots and different sub packages, you're going to feel a heck of a lot better about your rush defense compared to the alternative, which is what we saw today out on there. And the Steelers did give Vince Williams some rest, especially in the second half. I know when Marcus Allen got hurt, Williams had to come back in and then they got him back out. So we'll see. But at the same time, definitely not the best showing for the Steelers heading into the postseason. Let's get to the super chat here. Just showed up. Machu Laos gives us $12.04. He's been spot on every week, giving us the record amount. Thank you very much for the tip. He said decent game all around considering the personnel. Pleased with the performance, with maybe the exception of the running game and another sub 100-yard game. Well, we're locked to run it back with the Browns next week. Yes, it is final. There's The Steelers will host the Browns next week. When is the game? That has not been announced yet. Rumors were, this is from Jerry Dulac at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, earlier in the week, the rumors were that the Steelers will be playing sometime on Sunday. That has not been finalized. That has not been confirmed. Do not start setting do not call your buddies and set up that party for Sunday, because that could change. There's going to be 3 games on each day. So one of those slots. Yeah. What's up, Dave?
I want to ask you this question. With the Steelers resting players and the Browns obviously not, would it be to the Steelers' advantage to play on Saturday, have that one less day to prepare for both teams? And then you get, what could even possibly be an extra day for the next week. I don't know if it'd be an extra or not. It would depend on how that would fall. And you have to get there first. Do you think playing on Saturday, especially with the Browns having to travel, do you think that is actually more advantageous to the Steelers, or is it the typical Mike Tomlin, we don't care, we're just going to show up and play whenever?
My first response to that is trying to figure out the timeline and whether Eric Ebron and Cassius Marsh would be able to return to the Steelers or not. Because they were put on the list as, I don't think they've tested positive, but they were put on the list as high risk contacts with Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden is not going to be able to play next week, whether it's on Saturday or Sunday. But I'm trying to figure out if that 24-hour span would matter. You want them in the lineup, right? Don't you want an offense with Eric Ebron considered? Or would you?
I don't think that's going to matter, because if it's just the 5-day for those guys because of the high risk contact, then they're going to be back.
Okay, so if it's just the 5 days, I think that there could be an advantage for the playing on Saturday. The Browns are going to have to travel. The Steelers will be at home, so we'll see. I don't think it really matters personally. Brian, what about you?
Absolutely. I kind of like what Dave's saying there, that, you kind of go with that if that's a possibility. That would probably help the team out. I'm thinking if they do get a Saturday game, it's going to be a night game. I would really think that you want to put the Steelers, if you're the NFL, into a primetime spot on a Saturday. If it's on a Sunday, you're probably putting the Steelers around a 4:00 game. The only thing I'm wondering is, are the Steelers going to get the coveted Nickelodeon game?
Nickelodeon game.
Yeah, there's going to be a Nickelodeon game where they're going to do crazy stuff and make the end zone be like it's slime and stuff like that.
Is that just on Nickelodeon, or is that going to be on the regular broadcast?
That's just Nickelodeon, right?
Well, you laugh, yet they had the Muppets on Monday Night Football. So
I'm praying. I'm praying that we don't see. I will say this: if Randy Lane gets slimed, that would be really funny. But besides that, I don't think I'd really enjoy any shenanigans, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, and you got to remember, the main thing they're saying is it appears that CBS wants the Steelers. So if CBS wants the Steelers, you have to look at which time slot is going to be a CBS game. And that's what I'm not sure of. So I don't know if that's already preset or if they're still working on it.
I'm trying to think. Typically, that news gets announced tonight. It might be late because sometimes they obviously have to wait for after Sunday Night Football, but typically that news gets announced tonight. Machu again gives us $5. Appreciates it. Please put all the players in a bubble at this point in the season. We don't need any more COVID situations, please. I hate to be the one. I'm just going to take a quick sidebar. I hate to be the one to say that I kind of called this. I was just on Instagram and I saw that Eric Ebron had a story, and those that use Instagram know exactly what I'm talking about. So I click on it, and it's video of a bunch of little kids playing, and I see Joe Hayden's there. And then I see Cassius Marsh is tagged in the video, and I'm like, man, they're all together at their house. Like, I get it. I understand that, your kids are playing together and stuff, but this is the stuff. If the NFL, I guarantee they saw that video, or because of contact tracing devices, they knew they were close to each other. That's why Cassius Marsh and Eric Ebron couldn't play in this game, because they all got together. It was right there for anyone with an Instagram account to see. So it's frustrating. And it comes back to what Mike Tomlin said before training camp. And that is, the most disciplined team very well might win the Super Bowl, because they're going to stay out of situations like this. They can't. The Steelers just look. As tempted as you are, you can't pull a Dwayne Haskins and go to a strip club. You can't. even get together with your families. You just got to wait. You just got to wait. Like, you have to wait. The season's over. You and your families can get together. You can go on vacation wherever you want. But right now, the focus has to be on the playoffs. So hopefully, fingers crossed, the Steelers, meaning Ebron and Marsh, don't test positive. And if they don't test positive, they'll be able to play in the playoffs. But Joe Hayden, he's out. He's out, and that's a shame. So, Bryan, go ahead.
That's not a BTSC role, is it, on the strip club thing? Just checking, asking for a friend.
Why you got to call Tony out like that? Come on now. Come on, bro. You're welcome, Tony. All right, let's get to the secondary for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, Baker Mayfield went 17 for 27 for 196, 1 touchdown. 97.1 rating. Let's look at the actual defensive numbers for pass defenses. They had 4 pass defenses. I
know one was Alawalu with the line.
Yep, Alawalu. Steven Nelson had one. Minka had the great one in the back of the end zone.
That's
that forced the field goal attempt. Yep, Sean Davis had one. And so, yeah, there's your 4. Guys, let's grade out the secondary. What'd you think, Bryan? Start with you.
Let me go ahead and give them a B+. And that's just, I didn't think that Baker was outstanding in this game, especially going down the field. I mean, I think there was that one play, but one big one early. But as far as everything goes, I thought the Steelers held up their end of the bargain real well. Minka came up big, especially holding them to a field goal in that one situation where they could have been up 14.
Dave, what are your thoughts on the secondary?
I'm trying to remember exactly when the play was, but there was a big pass play where a certain corner that doesn't usually play, that we don't want to call out by name, or Jeff doesn't want to call out by name, just got absolutely
he'll DM me on Twitter, calling me an idiot, not know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, was just absolutely gave up a big pass play. You kind of showed that there was certain guys that you could call on and certain ones that you might not want to. That's the only thing that I saw with some negatives. Did you notice Cam Sutton filling in for Joe Hayden? Did you notice a problem or anything going on there? Nothing that jumped out to me during the game while I'm watching, but also while I'm also trying to update the scores on all the possible games, the playoff scenarios, and all that as it went on. But nothing jumped out at me in that aspect. I'm just going to give them a B, because there were a couple plays like that were troubling, but I think those are things that can just be corrected by having different players on the field, perhaps.
Yeah. I'm going to give them a B, because that one player that I can't talk about, whether it's on Twitter in written form or mention him in an audio podcast, because it's actually true, by the way. He did send me a direct message on Twitter saying I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. So kudos to that guy. I think he got benched, by the way. I think they started him outside and they replaced him with Cam Sutton, didn't they?
I thought he was someone who was supposed to play more and then rest Steven Nelson, and then
I gotcha. So typically in the past, though, also when they go into dime, Cam Sutton goes back into his typical spot, and they might put the guy that I can't talk about outside. So, yeah.
You know what, Jeff? I think you need to think about some things before you write and talk about these players. Just stay in your lane. Just stay in your lane, Jeff.
No, it's okay, because it's science. It's science.
I digress. You're going to kill me for this. Tony got called an idiot by Justin Hardwig once, but that was before we were really crazy we weren't all over social media at that point as far as Twitter and everything, but he called out, and Tony apologized to him, and Justin Hardwig wrote something back and said, "You're still an idiot."
It does rhyme with lame, as Black and Gold Goggles said, and we'll just stay in our lane. There you go.
It rhymes with
lame. No pain.
Yeah, what's up with these guys named Justin, like Hardwig? Gosh,
what's up with people being that sensitive that they can't take a little bit of criticism? That's what
you should see the stuff that I get.
Oh, I bet. And for those that are wondering, what is Jeff talking about? A couple people in the live chat, or you have to listen to my Let's Ride podcast, because I talked about that. That was after the game. I'm trying to think what game that was. I'll tell you to go back and listen, but I can't remember. So yeah, you get those DMs. that are just fun to get. I'll never forget a guy who used to write, Mike Frazier, used to write for Behind the Steel Curtain. He got threatened by Bud Dupree. Bud Dupree challenged him to come down to the facility, and he was going to fight him. Some of these guys, I mean, gosh, they're just holy.
That was a few years ago when we're hoping
Bud's like second year.
Since then, right?
Yeah, I think it was Bud's second year.
Yeah.
So all right.
So hey,
my gosh,
can I throw out some geeky numbers real quick? Because someone said in the live chat that the Bills were foolish for playing their starters at all.
Here we go.
So are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
It was from my Crunching the Numbers article this morning. I went back and did all this research. Here's what's crazy. Teams that are hosting a wild card game, so before pre-2020, because now there's 3 of them, you're talking about the number 3 and the number 4 seeds. If you're talking about the 3 and 4 seeds, if they completely rest their quarterback, don't even have them play, their records in the last 15 seasons is 2-6. I'm pretty sure 2-6. When you're talking about where they play their quarterback, but only play him not more than a half, those teams are 5-1, with the only loss being in 2005. It was the Cincinnati Bengals when they sat Carson Palmer for the majority of their Week 17 game, and then they lost to the Steelers in that wonderful 2005 postseason run. So there is some benefit to playing your players some and then resting them the rest of the game, making them prepare and stay on a roll. Now, when it comes to the Steelers this year, what they did was the wise thing, because they did not get a bye. This was their chance to actually have a little bit of a bye.
All right, I have a question for you guys. I didn't miss any grades, I don't think. That was pretty much it.
We could always grade the kicker.
Matthew Wright. He makes 246. Well, he made 3 kicks. I think a 26 and 246. Definitely showed enough leg.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden, I'm feeling confident in case he has to kick in the playoffs. Go ahead, Bryan.
And one of the nicest onside kick attempts I've ever seen.
Yeah, he kicked it right. The officiating in this game, I don't want to go off. I thought they were awful in a lot of ways. I've been saying it all year. If you follow me on Twitter, my handle's there right on the screen. If you want to check that out, they're the worst at spotting footballs I've ever seen in my life. I mean, some of these spots they give guys, for both sides, by the way, are horrible. And then you look at that onside kick. So it goes right to the Browns' offensive player, don't even know who it is, and it's in between his legs, and he's trying to bring the ball in, and then the scrum starts. And you have officials running in, basically already giving the Browns a first down sign. I'm telling Dave, wait a second, that ball's up for grabs underneath that scrum. Whoever comes up with it is who gets it. Now, maybe they did.
I think he did.
Man, he could have. But for the fact that they're running in, saying it's their ball, there was no clear possession at all on that play. And then you talked about Mason Rudolph getting hit in the head, the many I felt were blatant holding calls that weren't called. And it just goes to show you the officials have been told, don't call holding, period. Just don't call it. Let them play. So, okay, that's fine. But don't do it one side or the other.
And everyone wants to say Tomlin won a challenge. There is, of course, he won that challenge. That call was so terrible. How do you miss it? I said to Jeff, the worst part about that was that he had to waste, when you only get 3. Luckily, it didn't come back to hurt him at all. You only get 3. That's only if you get 2 of them right. That he had to waste one of them there because it was so obvious that call should have been made properly. Were they so busy staring at his feet they didn't see his arm hit down out of bounds? Maybe that's what it was.
I don't know. It was bad, but I want to ask you guys a quick question here. Not to look ahead. I said that at the beginning. Which side of the ball is going to benefit the most? Which side of the ball is going to be like, wow, this team did the offense with getting Pouncey and Ben back, defense with Cam and TJ, which is going to see a bigger boost in the first round of the playoffs coming off of this Week 17 game? Go ahead, Bryan. What do you think?
I'm going to say the defense is going to get a bigger boost out of this. I really think the defense looked really good, but you get these guys back, they are going to be game breakers going forward.
What about you, Dave?
Yes.
No, Dave Schofield.
They're both going to. I'm honestly, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say defense And especially if they could even possibly get Spillane back, which there's people are saying Spillane, no, he just because he's eligible to come back.
Edmonds.
Then you add Edmonds, which is very true. Thank you, Jeffrey. That's why it's the defense. And also, there was not a big drop off at quarterback this week. There was not.
No. Again, I mean, boy did the fan base's tune change with Mason Rudolph.
Well, no, Michael Beck tweeted it out, and I had to retweet it. I almost feel like I got to look at it because I'm like, I couldn't have said it any better myself, because what Michael said, this was at halftime. It was that he said, and I'm trying to bring it up here. He says, if you don't think Mason Rudolph is playing well, it's because of your preconceived notion that he isn't a good quarterback.
Yeah.
He hit the nail on the head right there. If you thought Mason Rudolph played bad in this game, it's because you already decided you don't like Mason Rudolph or you don't think he's a good quarterback. Okay. And it's not like he played but you can't say he played bad in this game.
No, I'm not going to say he played bad, but I'm going to go with the offensive side of the ball as is going to get the biggest boost. I think that with Ben having a week off, I think you're going to see a different quarterback than you have seen in the month of December. I think a lot of people are just thinking, it's just a week. And, whatever. It's not going to matter. Think to yourself. I mean, when was the last time, like, maybe you pulled a muscle? Okay, let's say you pulled a hamstring playing in a church softball league game, or not saying that's happened to me, or you were playing with your kids and someone kicked you in the shin. I could think of a million different scenarios here. After a week, think about how different it feels. It starts to feeling better. So let's say Ben's knees were really sore, and it was really causing him some pain to step into throws and things like that. And maybe his shoulder is a little sore and his arm's just fatigued. A week off is actually going to matter. It is. It'll matter. Will it be night and day? I don't know. That's something I can't tell you because I don't know the actual, if he has injuries, what's the extent of those injuries, but I think it will matter. I think you're going to see a different Ben Roethlisberger.
Jeff, how old are you?
37. I'll be 38 in February.
So you are Ben Roethlisberger.
He's 1 year older than me.
Yes,
yeah.
1 year older than you. I'm just a few years older than that. And I can tell you, it makes a huge difference so much more now than it did 10 years ago. So just little things that you could bounce back from in a day or two 10 years ago, you can't do it. Now it takes 5 to 7. So I think you're right. This is going to be huge, hopefully, for Ben Roethlisberger feeling better next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a big jump for anyone. I mean, for both sides of the ball. Like Dave said, yes, when I asked the question, which side of the ball? I think, they both will. I mean, TJ Watt, could you talk about at age 39 getting a week off? TJ Watt, I mean, he's what, 26, maybe 25? He's going to be like a thoroughbred chomping at the bit to get after Baker Mayfield. He's going to be out to kill someone. And, I know that on our Slack channel, Michael Beck said that his TJ Watt needs Aaron Donald to have a really bad game today against Arizona, which is going on as we speak, so that, TJ could be the defensive player of the year. This is something Lance Williams used to say all the time on our shows the last 2 years when the Steelers didn't make the playoffs. You have to make the playoffs to win those type of awards. And so TJ is going to have an opportunity to put out even more tape in the playoffs, even though when is that voting actually done? It's not done. Is it done before the playoffs, or I don't know, but it's going to be fresh in people's
I don't know the timing of it. Yeah, that's a good question.
So, all right, let's do final thoughts here. Bryan, start with you. Go ahead.
All right, my final thought is a question, and you guys don't have to answer this, but how impressed were you really with the Cleveland Browns today? Because I wasn't. I wasn't impressed with Baker Mayfield. I was impressed with Nick Chubb because I'm always impressed with Nick Chubb. But Jarvis Landry looking angry and looking like he's on a mission did not impress me either. These guys were not impressive at all. Myles Garrett holding his shoulder on the sidelines. Even when he was in there, he did the things he's supposed to do, but not over and above that. It just felt like this team was not a very inspired team whatsoever. And now they are going to be facing the Pittsburgh Steelers that get a lot of guys back. I'm not talking just one or two guys. They're possibly getting 6 or 7 guys back. Maybe more, maybe less, but somewhere around there. I didn't do the complete math. All I'm saying is the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though they didn't win this game, they did what I wanted them to do and go out, play with pride, play with passion, and compete for this game. And even if they came up short, I was going to be fine with that because there's no repercussions to losing this week. So really, they put a thought in the Browns' heads that, hey, we're vulnerable. The Browns are in more of a pressure situation coming into this game than the Pittsburgh Steelers are, as far as I'm concerned. Kudos to the Steelers for this game. I would have loved to have seen the victory. I would have been loving to, just celebrating a win, and it almost happened. But really, what they showed me on the field makes me feel good about the playoffs coming up.
Dave, final thoughts. Go ahead.
You know how they talk about like a letdown game after a really big game? You have this game that you're so wired up for, and you've got to go win this game, and it's got to be there. And then after that game, you kind of have a bit of a letdown game. This was a big game for the Browns. This was not a big game for the Steelers. Okay, the Browns had to put everything that they had into winning this game to get to the postseason. And they won by 2 points against the Steelers, who left their 4 captains at home. The only captain that was even there was their special team captain in Jordan Dangerfield. He was the only guy in Cleveland. The other 4 were sitting in Pittsburgh watching the game. Okay, this is what the Steelers were doing, and yet in Cleveland, it was a 2-point game. If Cleveland comes out and blows the doors off of the Steelers as they rest players, then you might be like, we'll see if it's that much of a difference. This game and the way this team fought and the way that they almost came back and won this game, let's go get it done next week when it's supposed to really be done. This is like, you've got everything that Cleveland wasn't holding anything back. They couldn't afford to hold anything back. Last game of the season, couldn't hold anything back. They couldn't afford to, or it was their last game of the season. So therefore, they had to give everything they got. Steelers got to hold back an awful lot, and it was a close game. Now you get them at home, and you get to go out and do your thing. That's what I'm looking forward to. Bring on the playoffs.
I'm not going to dive too much into my final thoughts on this game. Really want to tell people to listen to my Let's Ride podcast tomorrow, which is titled The Time for Excuses is Over. Maybe they're holding something back for the playoffs. Maybe this, maybe that. Like, it's done. Like, it's now or never. It's put up or shut up. The Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2016. They're going to have the Browns in their house. When was the last time the Browns were in the playoffs? 2002. Who'd they play in the wild card round? The Pittsburgh Steelers. Who won? We all know Fumatu Ma'afala on the draw in the snow. Kelly Holcomb. Thank you, Dennis Northcutt, for that drop in the second half. We appreciate it. If it weren't for that, we would have lost the game. We'll talk about that. If you're not doing that if you don't run that retro show again, Bryan, this week, you're nuts. Just so you know. You're absolutely crazy.
So you're okay with a repeat?
Yes, absolutely. This will be a good one for this. But check out my Let's Ride podcast tomorrow. And then also all of our podcasts. We have a couple super chats here before we call it a show. Machu gives us 1304 as there he is. He's predicting not looking past the Browns next week, but I have great confidence after today's performance. Can't wait till next week. Feels good to be playing January football again. Let's get this W. Here we go. Stairway to 7. I love that. Love that positive energy. Snowman gives us $5. The boys from Down Under did a great job yesterday. It was a really, really fun show. Thanks. If you didn't check out the Steelers Touchdown Under, which has been on our audio side for the entire season, is now on YouTube. And Bryan, give us the lowdown on when they'll be on and all that stuff.
So what's going to happen is you will see them every Saturday live around 5 p.m. So and then on the audio network, they'll be on the following morning as far as that goes. But if you want to catch these guys live, and once again, I do apologize. Dave and Rich are no longer the poster boys, no longer the sexy guys as far as the eye candy for BTSC. We're now making the Australians that guy on Saturdays. So you go ahead, check them out at 5 o'clock every single Saturday. So Dave, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Hey,
Let's go, Buzz.
the live chat on Saturday didn't agree with you. They said that Big Bro's a 10, and that means Dave's going to be an 11.
All right. Jesse George gives us $4.99. He says, did Yins notice the playbook seemed to be more opened up without Ben? Very interesting. Is he not comfortable? Maybe. I do think there's plays that Ben is comfortable with compared to ones he's not. So therefore, I think that it's definitely that type of situation. Dave, go ahead.
Last question. I know the ball wasn't coming from Ben Roethlisberger. You think Ben Roethlisberger watched this game today? I'm pretty sure he probably did.
He probably was out playing with his kids. Yeah, he watched.
I hope he watched this game because you know what? Even though he wasn't the one throwing the ball, he should have more confidence in the receiver based on today's game.
I agree 100%. All right, gentlemen, good job. We appreciate it. If you're watching live on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate the love on that side and that platform. If you're on Facebook, make sure you like and follow our page. We appreciate that as well. Make sure BehindTheSteelCurtain.com is your one-stop shop for all things Steelers. Look, we're guaranteed at least one more of these. Let's hope that next week, whether it's Saturday or Sunday night, we're going to be talking about a divisional round game coming up. We'll be with you all on the way. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Take it easy.